So as we start the Spanish-American War, our first subtopic is battle in the Philippines. Okay? Now, does that seem a lot to you? Where are the Philippines? Are they near Cuba?
Down by Australia.
Yeah, they're in the other hemisphere. They're not anywhere close to Cuba. So why in the world would the United States of America, why would the first action of the Spanish-American War occur in the Philippines? Who obviously controls the Philippines? Spanish. But why would we be clear over there? Matter of fact, you ever heard of Ferdinand Magellan?
Yeah.
Spain ruled the Philippines since he sailed around the world, right? So they've held that a long time. Now, do you think the people in the Philippines were being treated any better than the people in Cuba?
No.
They really were not. But we had a specific reason why we wanted the Philippines. I mean, this has really nothing to do with Cuba. Why would we want the Philippines?
Trade with no.
What's the great thing about the Philippine Islands over in the Pacific?
Strategic position.
Strategic military position. And so the Assistant Secretary of the Navy had his eyes on these islands. And it was his suggestion that during the battle of the Spanish-American War, that the first battle be in the Philippines, because he wanted to secure the Philippine Islands. Not so much because he wanted to free the Filipinos of bad rule, but because he wanted those islands for military bases. Who was the Assistant Secretary of the Navy that put his eye on these islands? Theodore Roosevelt. So Secretary of the Navy Theodore Roosevelt hoped to gain control of the Philippine Islands for future naval bases for the United States. So the first battle in the Spanish-American War, which is supposed to be about Cuba and Puerto Rico, is over in the Philippines, clear across the globe.
Did it also involve Haiti and all that?
What?
Did the Spanish-American War also involve Haiti?
We took care of Haiti. Remember when we talked about the Louisiana Purchase?
Yeah.
Now, Roosevelt, as Assistant Secretary of the Navy, had a lot of power, and he ordered United States Naval Commander George Dewey to advance immediately to Manila, which is all on your ID sheet. So, Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Theodore Roosevelt, who had a lot of power, gave orders to United States Naval Commander George Dewey to advance immediately to Manila. What is Manila? It's the capital of the Philippines, okay? So, again, Secretary of the Navy Roosevelt gives orders to United States Naval Commander George Dewey to advance immediately to Manila, which was the capital of the Philippines. What was stationed there that they were so interested in? Spanish military fleet. Okay? So the Spanish military fleet, naval fleet, was stationed there. So once Dewey advanced to Manila, what do you think he and the Navy did? They attacked and destroyed the Spanish fleet that was stationed there. Yep.
What makes the Philippines so strategic?
Look at it on a map sometime. You can protect all of Asia. You got the Pacific Ocean.
But like, I'm wondering, how is it strategic compared to the war that they're trying to fight?
But no, it isn't. They just wanted that particular piece of land. Okay, so we weren't going to take Cuba because of the Spanish-American War, but we were going to take the Philippines. Nobody said anything about the Philippines, right? Now, the aging ships of the Spanish Navy were no match for the new American Navy vessels, and Commander Dewey completed his orders with ease. American Navy vessels basically sank the Spanish fleet to the bottom of Manila Bay in short order. And with that victory, not only does George Dewey become a big-time hero in military history, but the United States secures, first and foremost, the Philippine Islands as their area for military strategic bases. So that was the first battle of the Spanish-American War, was the Battle of the Philippines, which really had nothing directly to do with Cuba or freeing Cuban people from Spanish rule. But it was strategic. Okay, let's talk about America preparing for war. Because we weren't even preparing ourselves for war when that happened. We just decided that'd be a good place to take it. Dewey was in the area, and he took it. Now, on the day that the United States declared war on Spain, there were more than 30,000 American troops ready to fight, ready to go. Okay? So we had 30,000 American troops trained and ready to go at the declaration of war. Okay? We didn't have to draft anybody or at this point ask for volunteers. We will eventually do the second. But at the time of the declaration of war, there were more than 30,000 American troops ready to fight. Now, where's an area that we might want to protect if we're going to go fight the Spanish? Tampa, Florida area. So what McKinley did is he took 17,000 of those 30,000 troops and he sent them to Tampa, Florida in case the Spanish decided to attack the United States through the Caribbean. Okay, it was probably wise to do that. So 30,000 troops ready to go. He sent more than half, 17,000, to Tampa, Florida in case of a Spanish attack there. So now he doesn't have enough men really, so what's he do?
Recruit.
He asks for volunteers. Now, do you remember how many volunteers Abraham Lincoln asked for? 75,000. And he had so many volunteers, he had to turn them away. Well, after this move of sending 17,000 troops to Tampa, Florida, the president asked for volunteers, and over 200,000 answered the call. 200,000 people volunteered. Okay?
How much of a percentage of the population would that be?
Oh, not a huge amount, but that's quite a few volunteers. You think if we were going to a war right now, and President Obama asked for volunteers, he'd get 200,000 volunteers?
No.
Hell no, he wouldn't. That's the difference between our country then and now, which all started, by the way, in the 1960s in Vietnam, that attitude. So, anyway, the president asked for volunteers to fight in the Spanish-American War, and over 200,000 volunteered. Guess who one of the ones that volunteered? What? I think you said it.
No.
Theodore Roosevelt. He resigned his, did you say it?
Yeah.
He resigned his position as Assistant Secretary of the Navy and volunteered to fight in the Spanish-American War. See, Alex, don't be thinking you don't know.
Did he volunteer while keeping his job?
He did not, he had to resign it because it'd be a conflict of interest. He couldn't fight as Secretary of the War. So he resigned his position as Assistant Secretary of the Navy and joined up, volunteered for military service. Pretty incredible when you think about it. Now, he led a cavalry unit in the Spanish-American War. What was their name? It wasn't the 7th Cavalry, they were named the Rough Riders. Okay? So, during the Spanish-American conflict, Theodore Roosevelt led a cavalry unit known as the Rough Riders.
Oh, I don't remember.
Known as the Rough Riders. Okay, so that takes us to our next subtopic, which is self-explanatory, the Spanish-American War, a summer long. What does that tell you? Only took a summer, didn't last very long. Okay? The Spanish-American War, a summer long. Remember, they're trying to overthrow the Spanish where? In the country of Cuba.
Couldn't they have just, like, no.
Now, there's a very important port city in Cuba that, if captured, would probably result in an easy victory. And that port city was Santiago. So there was a very important port city in Cuba that needed to be captured. That was the main objective for the United States military, was to capture the port city of Santiago. The reason is because the Spanish Atlantic Fleet was docked in Santiago Harbor. Now, it was kind of weird because Santiago is on the top of a big hill. And in this area here is the harbor in which the Spanish fleet is docked. So this hill right here is going to have to be traversed to get to Santiago.
Doesn't that make it really defendable?
Yeah. Because what's on the other side of Santiago? The harbor, which has the Spanish fleet.
But
Now, the Spanish-American fleet was important to capture. And in order to get to I spelled that wrong, didn't I? No, that's in here.
that's right.
Yeah. In order to get to Santiago, they had to go up this hill, which was called San Juan Hill. Okay, so, yes.
I'm just wondering, if they actually, when they actually get up to the top of the hill and capture Santiago, wouldn't their disadvantage, or wouldn't they have the advantage against the Navy then, if they'd be up there?
No. Well, it's a good question. We're going to answer before it happens. So, again, the main objective for the United States military in Cuba was to capture the port city of Santiago. The Spanish Atlantic Fleet was docked in Santiago Harbor, and the city of Santiago was set on top of a hill known as San Juan Hill. Well, on June 24th, 1898, Spanish and American armies clashed. On June 24th, 1898, Spanish and American armies clashed. And it was Theodore Roosevelt and his Rough Riders who led the charge up San Juan Hill towards Santiago. So on June 24th, 1898, Spanish and American armies clashed, and it was Theodore Roosevelt and his Rough Riders who led the charge up San Juan Hill towards Santiago. After incredibly difficult fighting and the loss of 1,500 men, Santiago was captured by the United States of America. So after some real hard, savage fighting and the loss of 1,500 American lives in the charge, the city of Santiago was captured by the United States. Now, this is kind of getting back to Caleb's question. The Spaniards could see that their city was lost, so they tried to escape their fleet, flee from the Caribbean. Okay, so the Spanish fleet is going to try to flee, get away, so they're not captured.
The American Navy was waiting.
The American Navy was waiting by the USS Oregon. So the Spanish fleet was met by an American Pacific fleet led by a battleship entitled the USS Oregon. So it wasn't just the USS Oregon, it was the entire fleet. But as the Spanish fleet tried to escape and flee from the Caribbean Sea, they were met by an American Pacific fleet led by the battleship USS Oregon. And what did the American fleet do to the Spanish fleet?
Captured.
Sunk them to the bottom of the Caribbean Sea. So as soon as the American fleet made contact with the Spanish fleet, they didn't capture anybody, they sunk the Spanish fleet to the bottom of the Caribbean Sea.
I feel like they could capture it.
So once the city of Santiago surrendered and the American fleet sunk the Spanish fleet, both the islands of Cuba and Puerto Rico were now free of Spanish rule. Both islands of Cuba and Puerto Rico were free. So how long did the Spanish-American War last? One long summer. That was about it. Okay? Now, that'll take us to our last subtopic, which is what?
Spoils of war.
Spoils of war for the United States. In other words, what did we gain by this? What did we gain by our victory in the Spanish-American War? 4 things we gained. 4 things. Yeah, but this is kind of interesting. We're not a crappy country. We did gain full control of the Philippine Islands, which we later paid Spain $20 million for. So during this settlement, the treaty after the Spanish-American War, we did continue to have control of the Philippines, but we did pay Spain $20 million for the islands.
I can understand.
Yeah, I think we're trying to, once you win the war, you got to help set the peace.
Yeah, but no.
So we gained, number 1, possession of the Philippine Islands, in which we later paid $20 million to Spain for. What else did we gain for the Cubans?
Freedom.
Freedom. So number 2, another spoil of war was freedom for the Cubans from Spanish rule. Okay? Freedom for the Cubans of Spanish rule. But the next, number 3 and 4, we actually gained possession of certain things. What did
Puerto
we-
Rico.
Puerto Rico. Very good. There was no complaint about that. So we not only gained possession of the Philippine Islands by virtue of the Spanish-American War, we also gained possession of Puerto Rico, which is not a United States state, but it's a United States territory. We rule Puerto Rico, okay? Because it's our possession. Everybody always thought it came in as the 51st state.
Why don't they want to?
I don't know, I don't really know the history on that. Okay, what other possession did we get that's in the Pacific Ocean and we wanted it because of military?
Gaul.
What?
I don't know.
Gaul.
Guam,
I don't know what I'm saying.
which is a very important island in the Pacific Ocean. So when we talk about the spoils of war for the United States, number one, we gained the Philippine Islands, in which the United States paid Spain $20 million. Number two, we gained freedom for the Cubans from Spanish rule. Number three, we gained possession of the country of Puerto Rico. And four, we gained possession of the island of Guam, which is a very important strategic island in the Pacific
Didn't
Ocean.
it become the U.S. airfield during World War II?
Now, the Secretary of State during this war is a guy by the name of John Hay. He should be on your ID sheet, and I didn't put it on there because I didn't put it on mine. John
He
Hay,
is on here.
not Jay, is he on there?
Yeah.
Oh, good. John Hay was the Secretary of State during this. And after hearing of the spoils of victory and what the United States gained by virtue of the Spanish-American War, he was the first to refer to the Spanish-American War as a splendid little war. Only took a summer to win, did cost us 1,500 lives, but what we gained out of it was so important that Secretary of State John Hay referred to it as a splendid little war.
That's a pretty morbid name for a war.
Yeah. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go back in our notes and we're going to have a little bit of a review and then we're going to have a quiz tomorrow. And we'll just have that quiz tomorrow right in here. You will not have to go to the comments, okay?
That's good.
So here's what you need to know for your quiz tomorrow. Are we ready?
Yes.
The election of 1898 will not be on. You can just kind of cross that out of your notes. Okay. I would know at least one of the local newspapers that were sympathizers with the Cubans during the Cubans' poor treatment on behalf of the country of Spain. I'd know one of those newspapers. I would know what William McKinley's philosophy of war with Spain was when he was inaugurated. I would know why the USS Maine was stationed in Havana Harbor in Cuba. Why? To protect American lives and property.
Do we just have to give one of those examples?
No. I would remember the famous line that was chanted by Americans after the sinking of the Maine, demanding war with Spain. I would know who Henry Teller was.
Wait, who was Henry Teller?
You can figure it out.
I would know why the United States of America was interested in the Philippine Islands. I obviously would know who Theodore Roosevelt was, George Dewey, Manila. I would know about how many troops were ready at the start of the Spanish-American War, how many were sent to Tampa, Florida to protect the United States in case of a Spanish attack there, how many volunteers that McKinley asked for.
They asked for
You know, how many volunteered when he asked for them. And the situation behind Theodore Roosevelt and the Rough Riders. I would know about Santiago. I would know about San Juan Hill. I would know about the American loss of life in taking that hill. I would know about the USS Oregon. And I would know the four things that the United States gained, the spoils of war, as a result of the Spanish-American War, and I'd know who John Hay is. And if you know that, we'll be in good shape. Okay?
Now,
We'll just take that quiz right in here tomorrow.
John Hay was Secretary